Welcome. I'm going to call this meeting to order for the March 25th Development Review Board meeting. Welcome. Thank you for your participation. We are going to go over the agenda and we'll swear everybody in. And we have two items of new business. One is a request by the Siegchrist family Homestead Trust for a sketch plan review for a 2-lot subdivision at 140 Barber Farm Road. And the second item is a request by Brendan Driscoll for a final review of a 4-lot PUD at 105 Bolger Hill Road. And then we're going to approve some minutes and then we'll adjourn the public meeting and then go into deliberative session. This proceeding will be conducted in an orderly manner consistent with the DRB's rules and procedures. Copies of those rules are available. We'll walk through what you need to know. First, is there any conflict of interest, ex parte communication on these subjects?
I'm going to recuse myself for the Siegchrist. I'm doing the wastewater design work.
All right, anything else?
No.
Okay. So then I'm gonna take a minute to go through an interested party discussion. So interested parties are those who under Vermont law have the right to appeal an act or decision of the zoning administrator or the DRB. They can be the applicant or a person owning title to the property, a person owning or occupying property in the immediate neighborhood of a property that is the subject of any zoning decision or act, who can demonstrate a physical or environmental impact on the person's interest under the criteria reviewed, and who alleges that the decision or act, if confirmed, will violate the municipal plan or bylaw. And the last group of interested persons are any 10 persons, voters or landowners, who by signed petition to the DRB allege that the decision or act, if confirmed, will violate the municipal plan or bylaw. They must designate one person to serve as their rep. Many members of the public may be interested in an application, but only those statutorily defined interested persons may appeal a decision of the DRB or a zoning officer. If an interested person fails to make a timely appeal, they are bound by that decision. Interested persons must participate in the hearing to protect their rights to appeal. Only those interested persons who have participated in the DRB proceeding may appeal the decision. Participation consists of offering oral or written testimony, evidence, or a statement of concern related to the subject of the proceeding. If there were to be appeal of the work we do tonight, the DRB does not determine who is an interested person. That is part of the appeal process. We do need to establish who participated in the hearing. We ask two things for that. Please sign in on the sign-in sheet if you haven't already, and I see that most people have. Or if you're on video, please provide your contact information in the chat or by email to the zoning administrator. Secondly, when you do speak in the hearing, please tell us your name so we can record it in the minutes of the meeting. Next thing, anybody who's going to speak needs to be sworn in. It is a quasi judicial hearing, so I'm going to read the oath, and if you're going to speak, please say I do. I hereby swear that the evidence I give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth, under the pains and penalties of perjury.
I do.
So the first item is the Siegchrist Family Homestead Trust. Who's going to speak for them?
You don't need anything more than that, right, Brian?
No.
No.
So my name is Brian Courier, Larry Burke Civil Associates, representing the Siegchrist family this evening. So we're here for a sketch plan for a proposed 2-lot subdivision. It's about a 20-acre parcel located in the Ag Rural District, 10-acre zoning. And the proposal is to construct a driveway over a historic agricultural road on Barber Farm Road. You can see it's, where Chris has got the cursor there. So there is a Class 2 wetland just to the west of the driveway, but we've been in discussions with the wetlands program. It's really the only means of access to the parcel. So it's a 2-lot subdivision, as I mentioned before. Each lot is roughly 10 acres with about a 200-foot shared drive, and then the shared drive breaks off into 2 singles. One building envelope is shown on what we're calling lot 1A on the western side, again roughly 10 acres. And then there's another lot on the eastern side, again roughly 10 acres. The blue line shown on the northern portion of the plan is a wetland delineation done by Fitzgerald Environmental in concert with the one that's down along Barber Farm Road. The reason that one doesn't have a purple 50-foot buffer zone associated with it, as the field's being currently hayed. So as an agricultural use, the wetland rules do not require a 50-foot buffer from an agricultural use. So that's the differentiator of why we have a 50-foot buffer on the lower wetland, but not on the upper wetland. So traditional 2-lot subdivision, portion of the driveway shared. I know Chris mentioned site distances. We do believe they're adequate at this location. It's the straightest portion of Barber Farm that fronts the parcel, but we'll certainly make sure we are meeting those requirements when we come back or find. But happy to answer any questions you may have.
Is that field gonna be continued to be hayed, be agricultural?
Yeah, so we believe that it will stay in its current agricultural use.
And what are the size of the 2 lots exactly?
The western one is 10.5 acres and the eastern one is 10.5. We haven't conducted a survey yet, but there is one on file that shows that it's over 20 acres. So it's 10-acre zoning. I believe 400 feet of frontage would be the requirements here for a traditional subdivision. So we got plenty of frontage, and we have 10 acres minimum for each lot.
Is there any clearing proposed for this, or is it?
Minimal clearing along the shared portion of the driveway. There is, like I said, an existing access there now, but it would need to be widened for ditching and stormwater control on either side of the shared portion of the driveway, but pretty minimal clearing here.
Pretty straight.
Yeah.
Chris, do you have anything?
My only comment that the board can entertain is that the field is gonna stay hayed. Is there the need to declare not necessarily a building envelope, but like a yard area or something like that. I mean, if the intention is for it to stay in agricultural use, so the wetland buffer doesn't come into play, then what is, if I buy it, do I want to mow the whole thing?
Yeah.
Right. And if we want to preserve that, then we should mention that they should develop some form of proposal to address that issue or concern or declare it one way or another.
I think a building envelope's a good idea, as we will be under the wetland permits, the wetland program's jurisdiction, as we'll need a permit to impact the buffer for our access point. Anything that's within 25 feet of a wetland or buffer, they require us to demarcate it. Usually it's boulders or birdhouses or a fence or something along those lines. So that would be my expectation here, but we can certainly designate building envelopes.
There's a building envelope that allows them to, I want to put a pool, I want to do sheds, gardens, lawns, things like
Makes your
that.
life easier down the road.
Answers that question ahead of time.
Sure.
So that's my only.
Is that whole northern half wetland? You have that blue line that goes across. Is it all wetland up through the pond?
Yeah, so we just delineated the southern edge.
Yeah.
So you can see the old farm pond that's up there.
Yeah.
So there may be some high points, but for what we were proposing. to
Yeah.
get, going further.
Okay.
Okay, nothing else on board, or Chris, I'll open it to public comment. Can you come forward and state your name?
Jean Siegchrist. I just wanted to straighten.
Gene, can you just come, that way the microphone picks you up?
Oh.
Thank you.
Here.
Right in the hot seat.
I just wanted to straighten things out, Brian. I think maybe I misheard, but I think that you said that the site to the right near the top.
Yep.
That is the east.
Oh, okay, we're not,
That's the east.
looks like yeah,
Yeah,
correct, that one.
and
Yes,
the
cursor
other
is-
one west.
Yep.
That's the only thing.
Okay,
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
all right, thank you. Is there any other public comment? Anybody online then with a question?
Let's see if where are they? If anybody does, please raise your hand. Going once, twice, gone. Nope.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. I gotta look at Jeff.
Oh. I think he may have gone upstairs.
Yes.
Actually, Chris, can you bring up the plat first?
See the plat.
Well, it's the. Thanks.
I may not have downloaded it. May. I got some application. I didn't download it, Joe. So you're gonna be good with this or Joe me?
Yeah, let's go with the site plan.
And I can.
Don't know what's on it.
Okay.
You can get questions on it, though, why not?
I will, why don't you make your presentation and I'll go, I can't access my email, so I'll download it to my file. I'll look at it.
I am Joe Flynn, Lancer of the Larry Burke Associates tonight, representing Brendan Driscoll on a final plan review for a 3-lot PUD with open space. Overall, again, we're looking at the site plan first, but overall, the parcel is roughly 21 acres in a split zone with almost 50% division between the forestry and the LDR district. Previously, we came in at sketch and presented basically the same thing with density calculations that based upon our interpretation of the density calculations, we were able to yield 3 lots with 1 open space. Overall, the division between the two and our calculations are kind of shown on the plat, but the area in the low density residential was 9.07 acres with 3 acre zoning, gave us 3 lots. In the forestry zone, we had 11.89 acres, which with 10 acre zoning gave us 1 lot. So again, we have a density of 3 lots, technically 4 if you hold to it, but we propose to come in as a PUD with 3 lots in open space, with the 4th lot being the open space, not counted in the PUD. So we're back in for this. I did take a couple minutes earlier in the week to review the sketch plan hearing regarding this. And especially in regards to density calculations, and while there was some back and forth with the DRB, there seemed to be pretty positive input and discussion about how we came about it with this situation. Again, we're asking both zones to stand alone as their density allows. Overall, we are proposing 3 new lots. Lot 1 is 3.03 acres. Lot 2 is 3.03 acres. Lot 3 is 4.41, with the open space being at 50, a little over 50% at 10.49 acres. This is what we typically call a flag lot with a long, narrow strip that provides us access. The strip is roughly 60 feet wide. We are proposing a 30-foot wide access easement along lot 3 to access all the other lots. We are proposing a driveway because, again, we're only proposing 3 lots, and Jericho standards allow for 3 lot access of 3 lots at the driveway level. We are also proposing all on-site sewer and water. Yes, also, so there is a section of this, thanks Chris for pulling that up. There's a section of Bolger Hill Road that is a class 4 road. There's roughly 4, I think it's 200, yeah, it's about 285 feet or a little bit more of class 4 road that we will be looking to upgrade to a driveway standard, again, to continue our access to this. So yeah, that's kind of my part of the overview.
Yeah, so looking at the staff report, Chris, you know, starts off with the density calculation. So that's what we feel is the biggest item, you know, to discuss with you folks. As Joe said, it was discussed that sketch. There's 2 ways that you can calculate PUD density, right? There's, you can take 25% of the parcel area and then just apply the minimum lot size. Another way you can do it is what we showed at sketch was a density plan. And the density plan that's clipped onto your staff report is what was shown at the sketch level. But it just gives, you know, this is with a larger parcel, so it's 28 acres at the time. After it was surveyed, it shrunk down to just over 20 acres. But the principle of it remains the same. Through a density plan, we can show that there's 9 acres in the low density res, which is 3 acre zoning. You can have 3 lots within the LDR. And where this is different than past Bolger Hill split lots that you folks have seen is the remainder of the parcel is greater than 10 acres and maintains the minimum lot size in the forestry district. All right, so that's where this is different than other split zone proposals that have been in front of you within the last couple of years, if you folks remember. So we're asking for confirmation that the density plan and the way we are showing our density here, and again, Joe said we have 4 units of density. We're only asking for 3 due to the limitations of the driveway standard. But through traditional subdivision, we expect that this board would allow for a subdivision along the zoning line that would create 3 lots in the LDR. My understanding is that the regulations have since changed where through traditional subdivisions, you used to only be allowed 2 lots with no frontage. Now you can have as many as you want as long as you maintain a 20-foot access easement. So we could do 3 lots in the LDR, and then the balance of the land in the forestry zone is there's 11 acres, would certainly meet the minimum 10-acre threshold within the forestry zone. So, and I wasn't here for the sketch plan, but my understanding is that there was some back and forth there, as you could see, the density plan was shown at that time. So we move forward with a 3-unit, a 3-unit density project. So there has been a lot of changes in the LDR since we were back here, but the PUD density standards, I reviewed them today, haven't changed since we were back here at sketch.
So the board knows what the way the PD process can work is the reduction of 25%, and you do your calculation. You can also, there's a provision within the regulations that allows the applicant to show via a conventional subdivision what can be built in number of lots. And we went through this with on Governor Peck, that application. And then the board has the ability to basically allow the density per the subdivision So it adds back essentially the 25% to allow the maximum amount. That's a provision that's allowed within this. And what it sounds like, what the applicant's saying is, we can do these 3 lots in the LDR. And since we can show you, we can do them in the LDR, we're proposing we should be allowed to do them in the forestry district. Is that kind of in a nutshell?
Yes, and so the reason it's a PUD, like I said, the regulations for traditional subdivision would don't require frontage for our lots as long as you have a 20-foot access easement, which is new. The reason it's a PUD is we're taking the density of the entirety of the lot, which comes with a 50% provision for open space, right, which is all shown on the eastern side of the lot. And we're clustering the units with building envelopes on the western side of the site. So that's what we're using our PUD provisions for, that flexibility. Now, there are split zoning regs. They don't cover everything, but they do cover uses, setbacks. They say if the structures are located in the forestry, well, in this case, the forestry zone setbacks and uses apply. Luckily for us, the single family home is an allowed use in both the forestry and the low density residential district. So we don't have a problem there. And then we're meeting the setback provisions in the forestry zone for the lots being within that zone. But like I said, the main component of why we're electing to do a PUD here is to cluster the units on the western side of the site, which obviously our access is very limited in this site. It's like Joe said, it's a flag lot off a class 4 right of way at the end of Bolger Hill. So very limited access in order to keep our footprint as small as we can while still maintaining the rural nature of Bolger Hill. That's how we're implementing the PUD flexibility.
So what's the minimum lot size for a PUD in the low density residential zoning district?
Well, in the forestry, it's an acre. So in the low density res, that it's half or third without looking.
It's LDR, that's it.
The LDR is 0.33, the forestry is half.
Our forestry is only half. Okay. So our smallest lot's 3 acres. So we're okay.
You got me. It's a little bit, it takes some staring at the rules on this one, right? And we've seen something like this one, so I really not in a position to.
Yeah.
to
So
answer
can you
that.
show the outline of the lot? You say it's a flag lot and I can see where it comes down,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I'm
where
sorry.
does it end on the left side here?
Right there.
Right there.
So
So
it
the-
ends right there.
Yep, so the class 4, so Bolger Hill is a class 3 highway up until the last driveway on Bolger Hill Road.
Yeah.
At that last driveway, there's another roughly 300 feet to where it terminates at the
okay.
firing range site. So that little piece is class 4 right of way.
Yeah.
And then we have a flag lot, so it's
Yeah.
very narrow, it's about 50 feet wide, going along our southern boundary with again, the firing range. And then splits into a lesser shared driveway and then
Yeah.
a single driveway. So it's our only access to the parcel,
Mm-hmm.
and that will come into play later. As an existing undeveloped parcel, we have a right to a single family home, meaning we have a right to an access point. That's our only access point. And the reason we're proposing 3 homes instead of 4, and we went into, Joe discussed out through our density plan, we show we have 4 units in
Yeah.
density. The reason we're doing 3 is the driveway standards are up to 3. So once we do 4, we have to construct a public road. At that point, the wetlands program isn't going to be happy with us.
Mm-hmm.
So as we have a right to a single family through our only access, whether it's 1 or 3, as far as access standards and footprint and wetland crossings and all that stuff, which is more important.
Yeah.
Whether it's 1 or 3 is irrelevant.
So what is the status of your wetland request to the state?
So the wetlands were delineated by Fitzgerald Environmental. We also delineated a vernal pool just off of our site on the firing range property, right at the end of Bolger Hill Road, or the class 4 portion of it. It was discussed at our meeting with JCC. One of the folks did a site visit, and Joe's been to the site often. We believe that it is man-made from plowing historically on Bolger Hill Road. There's a pile kind of at the end, seemingly damming water, and that's what created it. But nonetheless, it is there now. So what's shown in red are the delineated class 2 wetland boundaries. What's shown in purple is the vernal pool. The purple line outside is the 100-foot vernal pool buffer that the state mandates. And the green line is the 50-foot class 2 buffer. And then as you move to the east, you can see that there's another wetland just off our property, but the buffer extends to the right there.
Down here?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, and you can see that we took the driveway, so there's an old road that is across that old 50-foot strip there. There's an old road that goes through there. We are trying to stay in its footprint as best we can, but in this instance, you can see where we're fading the road a little bit to the north. The wetlands program is asking us to, minimize our footprint to the greatest extent possible. So in this scenario, we moved it as far north as we could while still allowing for enough room to put a culvert there. And then once we cross that class 2, we come back to the historic road, and then there is a class 3 wetland, and then there's another class 3 wetland as you move to the east. And then when you get to the corner of lot 1, you can see again the red is the class 2, and then the green buffer is the 50-foot buffer. So
Lot 3.
Lot 3.
lot 3, yeah, sorry. So all the building envelopes are outside of those buffers, but we were delineated in 2023. The state confirmed the delineation in 2023. We've submitted a wetland permit application to the state. It's currently in their queue. Before we submit those, we always have back and forth with the wetlands program to confirm that we're eligible for their permit. We did get an indication that they believe that we were eligible for a permit in this instance. Again, given this is our only means of access, we don't have a choice in the wetlands program. Knows that, and they will allow access if it's our only means.
You have existing impacts and you're proposing to move them further?
Yeah, we're staying within the historic road as best we can. The only time we're deviating from that is when it will save wetland buffer impacts.
Gotcha.
So the road already goes through.
There is a road that goes through.
Already
now.
through the 100.
You can't
Through-
drive a car on
right,
it.
right,
It's
but
rough.
it goes through the buffer area,
Yes,
Yeah.
and there's no way to avoid that. Because
it's the only way in and out, and as you can see, it's a 50-foot right of way
Yeah.
through class 4 highway owned by the town, and then we're through an equally 50-foot wide privately owned pole of our flag lot, and then it opens up.
Is there a difference between the class 3 and 4? I used to know, but it says class 3 on your map.
It's class 3 to the last driveway. Where is that?
Oh, is it?
Well, there's an arrow pointing north,
Oh,
so
I got you. Yeah.
yeah, so it ends right
Right
up
there.
about at the driveway.
Class 4 is just not maintained by the town.
Class 4 town has no responsibility to maintain any of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, it's our only
Yep.
means of access.
Is that turnaround current there, or is that?
No, so at
Oh.
sketch, and again, I wasn't here for sketch, but there were comments made by the landowner that I believe we would appreciate a turnaround. We did look into providing a real turnaround that meets Jericho specs. It's only a 3-rod right away, so we only have 50 feet to work with there. We are showing a turnaround it's about 32 feet from gravel edge to gravel edge, so like a 2-way parking lot is 42 feet. So it's not too far off of a standard parking lot, so I think you can turn around a small car there, but you certainly can't turn around a plow truck. Now, we obviously looked at other options, but given it's 50 feet wide and we have our driveway there, there's there's just no room. And then on the western side, it slopes down towards our driveway. So in order to fit a turnaround that would be pointing towards the west, or even if we slid our road further west and had the turnaround pointing east, there's a significant amount of grading there that would have to happen. So we need an easement, likely for the end of the turnaround, plus whatever grading would have to be done.
How does the plow currently turn around at the end of that road?
I believe they use the residence driveway. So,
They do.
yeah, so it's a class 3 highway now. Right, by us constructing our driveway, and if we want to call that a non-conformity in zoning terms, right? I don't know if deviation from public works specs is technically a non-conformity, but in zoning terms, if it's a non-conformity. By building a driveway past the class 3 designation into the class 4, the town's not maintaining our driveway, obviously. We're not making the non-conformity any more non-conforming than it is today. And we had discussions with the wetlands program yesterday, and I got a response this morning. Because the road foreman walked the property and thought we could fit a turnaround where we have that 90-degree bend.
Yeah.
Which I agree that would be the spot for it, where we could, dimensionally possibly fit it. But the wetland program shut that down and basically said, when we agreed that you're eligible from a permanent perspective, it was only going to be limited to your access and nothing, additional. So they were not supportive of adding a plow truck size turnaround in that location.
Are you bound 1 acre pervious?
We're not above an acre, no.
No, I mean, you're bound, you're within that 1 acre threshold.
Yep.
Because you got an existing road and all that.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So do you have a little more room if somebody needed a private turnaround at the end, for like gas trucks, UPS and stuff like that?
So with the grading, I have it as big as it can be without putting in a wall or, grading onto the neighbor's property. Now, there were some concerns about maybe trash receptacles or stuff being, placed there. We can certainly move it further down. It doesn't have to be at the end.
Right.
My thought was if you have an errand passenger car going by, that is a place to turn around when you see a, town highway ends, class 4 road, or whatever signage, would indicate it's time to stop and turn around. It gets a little flatter, Justin, as you move further to the end of the class 4, but it really doesn't flatten out until, of course.
I'm just thinking from a practical standpoint, when they get up to the houses, and because I talked, the UPS driver tells me all the driveways he won't go up, and there's a lot of them.
Yeah. So what we're not showing and what Chris has indicated in his staff report, if we maintain a 12-foot wide driveway, we're required to have pull-offs every, I think, 100 feet. So we're not showing those. So
Gotcha.
we'll have to have pull-offs every 100 feet.
But you
We can't put them in the wetland buffers.
But you got places you can put them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we got places we can put them. And then it also says we need to have a turnaround at the end of the driveway. Well, there's 3 ends of the driveway here. So we're not showing them, but we can certainly show, and imagine the residents would certainly want turnaround. No one backing out of this driveway.
So your final plan will have pull-offs.
Yes. So
randomly placed or whatever, wherever you out of the buffer. Yeah.
we'll show them every 100 feet with the exception of the wetland buffer.
Oh.
So where is the very narrow part of Blue?
I believe it's a little bit past, oh god. So, how do I describe this? Go, the R in Bolger, right up in there. Go a little bit farther, up in there. So that's where we're being instructed that. I will tell you right now from a previous survey, see where Bolger Hill is mapped right there with the corner?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, we've done some preliminary work there for a previous subdivision a couple years ago. And we shot the gravel through there. And most of that section through there, the varying width is between 16 and 17 feet wide on that corner in there. But again, it's a town road that is put in there. Now, yeah. It doesn't change much from that.
Yeah.
No, well, there's 17 houses on the road now, so this would add 3. So it's not a substantial increase for the folks using Bolger Hill, but you know, it's a class 3 highway. So it's a maintenance issue that the town's highway foreman, you know, needs to address. You know, we'd certainly be supportive of that, but as far as you know, critiquing or you know, going over the foreman's head as far as widening or anything like that, I don't believe it's in the scope of our project. As an
So
example.
how many houses are there today past that area?
I believe you counted 17, was that right?
17 on the whole.
Well, 17 on the whole road.
How many are past that?
Two. Potentially 5 to 6. I can pull up the aerial map if you'd like and count them, but I'm saying approximately 5 to 6.
So there's approximately 5 to 6 there now, and then it'd be 3 more. I get it that it's a town road. but
Right.
It's an existing situation that you're, making worse by having 3 houses, right?
Yes, but we're not making the maintenance of the road worse. I mean, how many towns are?
You're making the traffic flow.
There will be more
50%.
use. Yeah, there would be, I'd say, there will be more use. I mean, if there's only 5 homes, adding 3 percentage wise is fairly a lot, but I'd say 7 homes using a town road is very minimal. But, like I said, how many roads are constructed exactly, or I get this isn't an exactly sort of scenario, but I would imagine there's a lot of roads in town, class 3 highways, dirt roads that don't meet current spec.
Yeah.
I can't speak directly for the highway supervisor, but he is aware of certain limitations in width on Bolger Hill Road. Pre-existing. Also, the town has road impact fees that are related to residential housings. When people pull permits, they pay an impact fee. They pay a road impact fee. That road impact fee goes towards their quote impact on the road systems, as well as its use for funds for road improvements. So where that money goes is to the discretion of the highway supervisor and the select board.
So just like the maximum slope of the driveway.
The existing land is less than 10%, so we label it as shall not exceed 10%, so it's not close to the 15%, 15% standard.
Ten.
It's 10, yeah. Like I said, existing grade is 10%, so.
Any other questions from the board?
I got a question for you, Brian.
Yeah, please.
Any knowledge of previous plans that had split zoning and a density plan like this?
Yes, so it was another lot on Bolger Hill Road. Maybe half the board. But there was another lot on Bolger Hill Road. It was split zone, again, forestry and LDR.
Yeah.
Interestingly, the lot was like 9.5 acres, and only a half acre of it was zone forestry. So it was we were having a discussion with the board, as this doesn't come up often, but the board determined that it couldn't be subdivided because half acre of the lot was in the forestry zone. The minimum lot standard for the forestry zone being 10 acres couldn't be satisfied any way you chopped it up. So at that point, we said, well, if you do a PUD, you can do, it was 9.5 acres, so you could do 3 lots in the LDR. Because there was 9 acres in the LDR. So through the PUD standards, couldn't we do, at least 3 lots? And the board said, well, no, you can't, because you can't satisfy the 10-acre requirement from the forestry zone. Right, so where that's different than here is it's still split zone. And we have the 3 lots in the LDR, but in this case, we can meet the 10 acres in the forestry zone because the parcel's much bigger. And there has been a reduction in density, or not density, there has been a reduction in parcel size when surveyors get their hands on it, parcels can change shape up a little bit. So we did lose 8 acres from what was shown on tax maps. But even then, it was 28 acres when we came in for sketch. Right, so we had 3 lots there at the time. So if it was intended to be 3, split zones, it's gotta be forestry, and you can only do the 10-acre lot size. Even then, we would have been at 2.8 lots, and you can't have 8/10 of a lot. So if that was the path that the board was gonna take at that time, we would have expected that we would have been given that feedback at that time. Now, we've shrunken from 28 acres to 20 and change. 21. But the concept is still the same. Certainly, we've lost area, but what we showed up there for a density plan, the only thing that's changed is instead of 2 forestry lots and 2 LDR lots, we are showing, or we have acreage for 3 LDR lots and 1 forestry lot, all meeting traditional subdivision standards.
So you say basically in theory, you could strike a line following the town or the zoning district line, subdivide it in theory.
Yep.
And you've got 3 lots on this district and 1 in this one.
Correct. And
That's a simple way for me to grasp.
yeah, and if split zoning is a low level,
Theory.
but maybe consider nonconformity, I would imagine something like that should be encouraged.
I know a lot of zoning documents try to follow boundaries when they create them, right? Not here,
Not here.
not here. Yeah,
No, we don't know where or why. So
it was simple.
Chris won't take any ownership of it.
I've been asking for 10 years to change it, so I think they took a flat document and drew a line.
What's the intention for lot 4?
So lot 4 is meeting our PUD open space requirement of 50% in the forestry zone. Right now, the documents have been submitted there's multiple ways you can do open space in a PUD. The landowner has elected to maintain ownership of it, but with all the covenant restrictions that won't allow for future development. So it could be used agriculturally, certainly, but that would be the limit of it.
Does that change the driveway count? Or household count, the usage of that entry in from
No,
3 to 4?
So our plat
No.
does show, show access, but we're not constructing a driveway. It's not a building lot. It would just be for agricultural.
Each lot would own 1/3.
No, so
Here.
if it was owned by an HOA, that would be the typical setup. You have a third interest in it. But in this case, the owner is electing to maintain private ownership of it, which is allowed in the PUD standards. As long as it's conserved, same.
So he's gonna maintain a right of way for his use, his
Yeah,
purposes.
so Joe's got just
Yeah,
on the north
I
part of
gotcha.
lot 3, there's
20-foot right away, which corresponds with the actual setback for that zone, so.
Gotcha.
And if you look on the site plan, you'll notice this is the farthest location from the residential houses.
And that's usable. I mean, you could put a road through there, it's not.
yeah, so we're not proposing a constructed driveway at this point.
Well, you could realistically put a driveway on that.
Yeah, I mean, it would depend on how the homeowner association documents are written, but currently we're not showing a driveway going to lot 4.
Is there power out there? Or where does power stop?
Power on Bolger Hill Road. There's a comment in the staff report about utilities not being shown. Power's the only one we're not showing. So usually we wait till we have approval from the municipality before we reach out to GMP and get their standard. We understand it would have to be installed underground. But it would basically just follow the footprint of the driveway. Wherever we're getting into wetland areas, the wetland program will want us to area line like over a ditch or off the shoulder of a driveway or something like that. But yeah, it'd be a fairly decent run for power.
And is there a plan for an HOA?
So the state so you didn't submit HOA documents, that was in the staff report, but the state mandates at least or minimum shared maintenance agreement, which is effectively, for the shared infrastructure is effectively an HOA.
Okay.
The only shared piece is the
Chrissy's clearing limits, this would be set in stone.
Well, it's mentioned in the deeds. It'll be, it's shown on the site plan. It's not shown on the plot, whether they want to require it to be on the plot.
Okay.
That can be,
We
that
just,
can be shown.
we just did one, I think, right?
I'm sorry?
We just amended one where they were
Yeah.
restricted.
Yeah.
I think that was on plat, right? That was.
It was on the plat.
Actually, it was not.
It was on the site plan.
Oh,
Actually, we opted on that situation, not to put on a plot, but to revise the site plan, shrink it, and file it.
we don't need to make plats any messier.
If someone wants to push,
I know,
fine,
I
I'm
know.
not
I'm
gonna
just
say
kidding.
no, but I much prefer it being
I
in
know.
the design.
It's okay.
Yeah, and just so what's shaded in kind of a yellowish color, that's the building envelope. In my view, the building envelopes and the clearing limits are the same. Building envelope is where the building should be sited, so it takes into account separation distances for mound systems and, setbacks and those sorts of things. But the clearing limits include all necessary impacts, so you'll see our
Well-
mounds are outside of the building.
Yeah.
So Brian, I didn't see any backup sites or secondary sites
For the mound
for
system,
the wastewater.
You don't need one with a mound.
Oh,
yeah, new rules.
nice.
Well,
There were rules.
what, 2011?
19,
Okay.
2019.
19?
Yeah.
Something.
I don't know them all.
Okay, some of it.
Anything else, Chris?
No, I guess the only thing with regards to the section of the regulations you guys were quoting with regards to the density and the allowance for the split zone, if you have a section number, just let me know, that way I can look at it. I know conceptually exactly what you're talking about.
Yep.
And I just, I want to make sure what you're proposing, follows the regulation. I get the concept and I just want to back it up with the regulation.
Yeah, so it would be, so there is a split zone section in the regs, as you
Yeah.
well know,
Yeah.
but it's very limited.
Yeah, it's
So
tiny.
Yeah, so it's not in that, but, citation,
Yeah.
When he started about one was restricted.
the density plan one is the one I have.
Right.
9. Yeah.
And I don't remember, it doesn't list it.
Yeah, so it's 10, 12, 7, 2.
10, 12, 7, 2. Okay.
Like I said, it doesn't explicitly state
Mhm.
split zoning.
Mhm.
Okay, anything else from the board? Okay, I'm gonna open it to public comment. So if you have a question, please write it to the board and we'll try and get answers. We collect all the questions or just answers after we collect all the questions. Is there any public comment?
You can come up to the table too, so we can get it on the mic. Please.
That's okay.
I'm sorry,
Hi,
what's that?
this is, sorry, I'm online. This is Angela Trahan from the Vermont National Guard.
Okay, we'll let you begin because why don't you go ahead, Angela?
I'm just wondering if we can go back one slide, please. I just wanted to take a look at the road. Yeah, that one. It looks like it gets really close to our boundary, if not over. And I just wanted to clarify that it does not breach the boundary of the Vermont National Guard.
Well, it's not supposed to, so they're saying, my look at it, I'm saying it doesn't appear to, but the applicant can. We'll address that if that's your question, after we have all the public comment.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay, go ahead.
Great, Tom DePietro. I live at 102 Bolger Hill Road. I am the driveway where everybody turns around, and it's okay, I just wanted to hand out a kind of highway map. There were some questions about class 3, class 4, thought there might be. So I'll get to Jerry. There's the map, and then this is a, just zoomed in, so it's really hard to read, but this is Bolger Hill here. You can see the U with the line that depicts the class 4 road. That class 4 road stops basically right after my driveway. Currently the town plows the end of the road and then turns her up the driveway. But as you've seen from the plat, the entire length of Bolger Hill Road all the way to the federally owned property is a town highway. And so I provided some written comments. I'm not going to go through all those mercifully for you all, but I do want to talk about a couple of things here. The first is Chris and I have been back and forth, Mr. Flynn and I, about the road. So my understanding of the regs is that the DRB does not have authority to approve anything less than a road and built for road standards in the public right of way. That lies with the select board. And so what I was trying to understand the last couple of days here as I went through the regulations is how this driveway is assumed and proposed right now. My understanding was that this would someday be built to a road standard, with fix some drainage and other issues up there as well. The impact of that, as far as I could understand, was related to whether this was a minor or major subdivision. So a major subdivision is if there's a road being constructed. So here we have a public right of way, the class 3 and class 4 road, but we're assuming that the select board will approve it to a driveway standard. So we're not calling it a road. So it's a minor subdivision by that definition. But if we were calling it a road, it would be a major subdivision, right? And so I guess I would ask that the board look closely at those requirements and make sure you're understanding them the same way as staff or I am, because I think it's a little nuanced there, because to my knowledge, the select board has made no decision regarding allowing a driveway to be constructed in the public right of way. So the plat doesn't show the improvements in the public right of way, but this is the plan that was turned into the Vermont State Wetlands Program for the individual wetlands permit. So you can sort of see a rough idea of anyway was proposed, and we've already heard there's going to be some revisions to provide turnoff or pullouts for people, right? But another issue I have with the way this road area is configured is the turnaround is put right in front of my home. So now instead of having a road here, we're going to have a driveway and we're going to have a turnaround right in front of my house. And that just, again, does not conform with the public works specs. It's pretty clear that needs to be at the end of the road. But we're putting it here for reasons I think you've heard earlier. And again, that the authority to approve something like that or anything that's not specifically to the standards, I believe lies with the select board. I don't believe the select board's made any decision on that yet. I believe that would be a future stop of the applicant to go and ask for this. So beyond it not meeting the specifications, I don't want to see this area turn into where everybody leaves their garbage or a parking area or anything like that. Because if we now have what we're considering a driveway going all the way up the lot and then 300 foot or so down Bolger Hill Road, presumably the garbage truck's not going to go down the entirety of the road because again, we're not building it to road standards. So everyone's going to put it there. Also would like the board to look closely at the dimensional standards for turnarounds. You already heard the project engineer testify. It does not meet those standards. Jericho standard, it's a cul-de-sac, but it allows a hammerhead with a 50-foot distance between the road center line and the back of the hammerhead turn. It doesn't talk about kind of the turn radius needed, but usually that's about 30 foot, 30-foot turn radius. So those individuals like plow zones maybe fire trucks, depending what the size of the truck is. So they can make that turn. They want to use this. And when you model that, if there's a question or if folks wanted to look into it, you can ask for an analysis and kind of look at a turn analysis, right? With a garbage truck with a large overhang or a plow truck like plows Bolger Hill Road with a large plow hanging off the front. Usually I take 12 foot to the, already 40-foot long truck. So it's just inadequate, and I think the board should really consider that on its own. Is it okay if I use the screen, Chris?
Yeah,
Would you mind zooming out for me for a second?
I'm sorry, zooming out?
Yeah, I just
Oh, yeah,
wanna-
sure, yeah.
we had a little bit of testimony about the narrow road width. And so I want to just clarify something there, the narrower road width,
Do you want the location map?
location map.
Okay.
Thank you.
You want me to zoom in?
No, I'm good. So we heard the discussion, right now, it's a little narrower here, it's like 17 foot. Between my neighbor and I, the road is as thin as 14 feet. You cannot fit two cars down that section of road between Carl and I at number 95 and number 102. Two cars cannot pass each other. This is part of the class 3 road area. So I'm concerned that we're adding 3 more houses here, and I'm gonna become part of a driveway complex here, when this really should be to a road standard. And again, I understand that the entirety of Bolger Hill Road is not built to the town standard, which is 22 foot wide with 2-foot shoulders and proper drainage, right? I'd at least like the section of road, kind of as I come and go, to allow 2 cars to pass each other. And I don't feel it's unreasonable for the board to make that a requirement of the applicant. Because it's been that way for a long time. Because if not, I'm going to be coming to the select board, and I'm gonna be asking them to spend Jericho resources, upgrade that road. I have 2 middle school children who will be driving very soon. I want to make sure they can safely get in and out of the driveway. I pull people out of that ditch a couple times a year. I pull people off the side of the road because it's slippery. It's only gonna get worse when we add more traffic. And that's a real safety concern. And the last thing I'll say is drainage. So the road last washed out in June 2024. I was actually home at the time and I was able to prevent some of the damage because I had a little tractor. I'm sure some of my neighbors will testify all the times before that the road washed out. There was a response to one of my comments from staff that just my opinion, the road is undersized. I would love to review some drainage calculations for culvert sizing, for the ditch that's there. Because I can tell you the existing ditch is going to be inadequate. It's overwhelmed frequently, right? In June 24, which just happens to be the last time. So if there was other information that the applicant could provide to show that this isn't gonna make the problem worse. Because the logging road is not dimensionally widthwise to the current driveway standard. It's going to have to be improved. It's going to have to be widened, right? Even to the driveway standard. So there's going to be increased runoff from those impervious surfaces that are going to drain into that ditch, into the undersized culvert that's under my driveway. And then further down the road where it kind of all the way down to the Nolden property. I think they're number 60 something. And that's all eroded out. So I would hope that we would look closely at the drainage requirements and the town standards. They adopted the state standards as well, to make sure that we're not putting homes in and stranding people that are gonna live in the new homes or not development. But again, I submitted some other written comments, but thank you boards at the time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Any other public comment?
Let me see if
I'd like to make some comments, if that's.
Sure.
Yeah, thanks. Good evening, Carl Asanate. I live at 95 Bolger Hill Road. And I've been there for almost 40 years, which is somewhat relevant to the topic of drainage. So I've had the opportunity to review many storms and water coming down Bolger Hill. So picking up on what TJ said, one comment I have about the direction of the class 4 road is whatever goes in there, whether it's a driveway or a road, the water that goes down Bolger Hill needs to go onto the south side of the road. If it goes on both sides of the road, which happens during peak storms, thunderstorms, or water melt off, it flows into our property. It flows into the barn, and it also flows down Bolger Hill Road, requiring the town to come up and maintain it. So if there's a way to be sure with the driveway, as well as the pull-offs that have to be put in every 100 feet, is to divert the water onto the south side into the existing ditch. Now, the concept of getting all that water appropriately done, I think, needs to be calculated for peak water drain off in thunderstorms. Because from our section of the road down to the turn, during peak rainstorms or melts, there's a lot of water that flows down there. So I hate to see it wash across the road out of that ditch. And the other comment I'll make about drainage is in the proposed access into the lot, there are several culverts. I don't know exactly where those line up into our property, but they are directed in that way. I'm hoping they're being directed into existing stream beds and not into new areas. Because that could be a problem for our land to have additional water. So I'd like to ask that those be considered to make sure that they're into existing pathways of water.
These are the culverts you're talking of, Carl, here,
Yeah, there and then there's
Here.
one. Yep, and then the one, or there you go, right there.
and here. Yeah, okay.
And I know the one closest to the corner there is probably gonna go into, there's a pretty good size existing stream.
Yeah.
But I'm not exactly clear where the other two are. So that'd be a consideration. One question I have is, we've been talking about 3 lots and 3 homes.
Roads.
I guess the potential exists that there could be ADUs on these lots or duplexes. So are we really talking about 3 homes or potentially up to 6? In which case, there would be considerably more traffic and just more wear and tear on the road. Again, emphasizing the need to make sure that whatever access to those lots is done thoughtfully and make sure that the drainage is handled appropriately. And we did mention about power, because I had a question about, where's the power going to be coming from? We have the last pole on our property from Vermont Electric Co-op. And then one question I have, actually more of a comment, is I haven't received, actually didn't receive any notifications for this meeting. I was made aware of it in other manners, but the address that I saw on one of the documents had an old address that reflects when our mailbox was down at the store, country store, which everyone knows is no longer there. So our mailbox is not there. We can provide our updated address.
So basically, the applicant provides the addresses for me to mail them to. And so I'm only as good as what I receive, so. And there were mailings went out to the abutters. I heard from one abutter that they didn't receive anything, so I resent things. The mail is a little odd nowadays. I don't have an answer for that. I mean, I'm supposed to get a insurance check in January. I still haven't gotten it, so. And it's a good insurance company. So, but, so noted. I mean, yeah.
I could. I'll provide it to whoever's have it.
Yeah, we'll probably make sure that the clerk's office should have you probably.
They
check the
actually
property.
gone there twice for that.
Yeah.
That's it, Chris.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment? Please.
I'm Marjorie Minot. I live at 44 Bolger Hill Road. My concern, and I think it's being glossed over, is the vernal pool issue. And I have 2 copies here. Vernal pool maps. You can see that it goes right through. And this will be setting a brand new precedent in Vermont. It's against the law. So I'm not saying it can't happen, the project can't happen, but it says for vernal pools, land development, including land preparation and clearing shall be limited in order to impact not more than 25%. This is Vermont law. So, and Andrea Hook did all this work for us. So, it says there has to be 100-foot buffer and the 600-foot buffer, which would be primarily natural vegetation to function for the migration zone. And I think this will be the first time it's happened here. So I'm gonna stand for that.
Can you show us on here where you believe the vernal pool is?
Can you look at, there's a,
He's on the left,
he's on the left.
actually their website.
And this area has the largest group of vernal pools.
Okay.
Is that fair enough? Yeah, thank you.
That's just a general map.
Okay.
So any copies that you guys have received, make sure that I at least get one copy of them so I can have them for the file, please.
Can I just ask you, so this is where the state, what we're seeing up here is where the state mapped the vernal pools. So this is where the state came out, or the engineering company, the environmental company came out and said where the vernal pools are. And you're saying that there are vernal pools that are incorrectly,
It's your website that shows these.
okay,
And we, as people that use that land, have seen those pools and we see them every year. We ride horses in there, hiking, my bikes, they're there.
On private property?
We have permission to do that, yes.
Okay. This is from the Jericho map viewer. It's a map developed by the Chittenden County Regional Planning Office. So it's.
So they're all subject to
it's an
field.
It's an overlay tool that is used,
It's an overlay tool subject to field verification,
right?
right?
okay.
It's been field verified.
They're ephemeral. You're not gonna see them except when they're there. They're not there in the summertime or the fall.
Right.
Okay. Any other public comment? Okay,
Yeah, I don't want to supersede any of the budding landowners, but I'm here to speak on behalf of my colleagues in the Conservation Commission.
great.
And I think the first point that I'd like to make is the NRO regs are fairly clear about impacts to NRO resources. And although we've done our best with our consultants to get these things properly mapped, we've seen in other projects that some things don't get documented, or there are some surprises. But in the case where a company has already gone out and done a field verification, the first thing that has to be asked of the board is whether or not they're considering the Fitzgerald report as the equivalent of an impact statement. So if the board wants to look at it that way, then the NRO regs say that an impact statement will overrule or override any of the resources that the NRO has designated. So that question number one, are you going to accept the FEA report as the impact statement? And maybe that's something they have to ask the project engineers. So that said, if the board's deciding that the Fitzgerald report overrides the mapped vernal pools, I think most of the other vernal pools that are in this area are actually on the National Guard property. And we, as a CC, did not do any sort of ground truthing in that regard. So question number one, there's been some allusion to the fact that this vernal pool at the end of the class 4 road was man-made. And I'd like to delve into that just a little bit, because we don't want to create a situation where if adjacent landowners want to throw a monkey wrench into a project, that they can hire somebody to go and construct the vernal pool, and then have somebody else come and say, well, this is a vernal pool, and therefore the access to development is prevented. So there's some history behind the vernal pool that's right here. And I don't think it matters whether it was man-made or not. The question is it functioning as a vernal pool? And what we know about vernal pools are those that are on bedrock or on deep clay soils have a tendency to persist well into the summer season, and they may even persist across the entire summer and into the fall. A lot of vernal pools are ephemeral, as Margie pointed out, and so they disappear by June. So I think at least one of our members has been to this pool, and it was full of water in November. So if Fitzgerald's calling it a vernal pool, it doesn't matter that it was man-made. It's a vernal pool. So the 100-foot disturbance, that's what our rules say. You can't disturb in a 100-foot buffer. So this is why I cautioned the engineers a couple of weeks ago about exploring a possible boundary adjustment to get out of that 100-foot buffer. That's not the JCC's purview to talk about boundary adjustments. But I did want to shift gears over to another resource that has been overlooked. That's the fact that this stream is part of the NRO. It's a primary ecological resource, and there are specifications. 6.7.3.1 forested riparian areas. Development can proceed, but with due caution to a number of constraints, and that has to do with keeping that border area on either side of the stream forested, so no vegetative clearing, no messing around with the stream bed. Sorry, that's my wording. And minimizing erosive effects of development. So that brings us to the third point about culvert design. And I'd like to understand who at the state level suggested that a 4-foot culvert was required. I don't know the hydrology behind it, but I assume there's a watershed somewhere up here that's going to drain through this point. Whether it's 10 acres or 30 acres, there should be some kind of calculation or charts that a area that's got forest cover is going to be able to withhold or percolate or filtrate how many inches of rain per hour. So I'm not sure who recommended the 4-foot culvert design, but in our talk with the engineers at our meeting last week, somebody said, this is hearsay, somebody said that the 4-foot culvert would represent, the installation of that culvert would represent too much of a disturbance to the site. And it was proposed that a pair of smaller culverts would be sufficient to carry the water. And I've got to refute that because, and I've got my sticks to show you, 4-foot diameter pipe versus 2.5-foot diameter pipe. If you do the math, 2 30-inch culverts cannot carry the same amount of stormwater flow as a 48-inch culvert. I'm recommending that if the board, and there's reasons for that, and I can go into them if you want, but I think the board should at least require, if they're going to go with a paired set of smaller culverts, that those diameters should be a minimum of 36 inches. And then the other constraint is to make sure that if the stream is flowing in a certain direction, right at the crossing of the road, to make sure that those culverts line up with the stream flow and not tangential in any way. And the main reason for refuting the 30-inch culvert pair is that 2 points. In a round culvert design, given the way frictional forces work on water, the top 10% of a round culvert does not support peak flow. So you're talking about a 4-foot culvert is going to have about 5 inches worth of clearance for water to flow. You go down to a 30-inch culvert, what you're introducing there is the propensity for that kind of diameter to block with debris. And this is a forested area. There's going to be debris coming downstream. A 48-inch culvert would probably be able to handle that much obstruction. But 2 30-inch culverts, they're going to plug. 36-inch culverts, probably better. And if you want a few calculations about how much flow could be handled, 2 30-inch culverts would have 22% less fluid carrying capacity than a 48-inch culvert. However, 2 36-inch culverts would have 12.5% more fluid flow. So wherever this 4-foot culvert allowance came to be, the board should at least require 2 36-inch culverts if that's what the engineering designs call. That's all I have to say right now.
Thanks, Tom.
Any other public comment?
Yes, sir. Good evening. Can you zoom out of the Bolger Hill map, Chris? My name is Jeff Rector. I live on Bolger Hill. I'm a concerned citizen, and I am the guy that all the water that comes off the top of Bolger Hill goes on our property. You've looked at the map, the location map on the left side. Lot 43 is the elbow of Bolger Hill. Currently, I think there's a 6-foot culvert in there. At least.
This huge up here where my cursor is?
Yeah, right there. So as we talk about all the water that's coming down Bolger Hill, and some of the other residents have voiced their concerns, I'm very concerned because we've come here before, because not only have we lost property because of the water coming down Bolger Hill, the town, the road crew has gone and actually created a culvert on which would be the north side.
Over here.
So they put a culvert in on our property because they had so much water coming down the north side of Bolger Hill. They just decided to go in, and we brought that to your attention. We wanted to remove because it's not the normal flow of water when you have an extreme culvert on the left side. If you've walked Bolger Hill, and I know some of you have, I've seen you up there. There's a lot of water that comes off that hill. So this being said, with the new development at the top of Bolger Hill, it's going to create more water, and it's going to create it coming down both sides. And currently there's 3 culverts on the way down Bolger Hill on the north side that goes to the south side to try to bring the water under Bolger Hill. 2 of them are filled with silt, and 1 doesn't function because it doesn't get to that culvert. So my concern is, as the water comes down Bolger Hill, it's going onto our property and then goes through our property and goes down onto the lower properties below us that actually get a lot of the silt from us. So I need you to really consider where this water is going to go if this is allowed to see. Okay. Secondly, concerned about equipment.
Let me just ask you a question. So where is the water coming from? It's on that map there on the left, right? Where's the watershed? Is it coming off the range? Is that where the water's coming from?
Well, it comes
Is it coming from the-
said it comes down right through under his driveway, down that side of the road, on the side of the Nulties, all the way down through the Millers, and then it gets to be a really large opening of water flow in the springtime. And then on the north side of Bolger Hill Road, when it does have heavy rainfall or other storm, it does go down that side too. So you have both sides of the road, they get water. So yes, to answer your question, it comes on both sides of the road, but mainly on the south side. That's where it's diverted to. But sometimes when there's excess water, it comes on the north side.
We just had this long discussion about a stream. I know that's going right, that stream going through there, right? So I'm
It
just not
starts-
sure, I'm just not sure what water you're concerned about coming down that driveway, because it looks like there's a big stream that's gonna take all that water away from you.
So if you've taken a walk up that road today,
Uh-huh.
which I did, and when they talk about a passable driveway, which is the proposed driveway, that right now is rutted and tracked because there's UTVs and ATVs that come up from the bottom side of Pratt Road and drive through there in the summertime, and I've actually confronted the owners and I've confronted them about safety because they have underage drivers driving these UTVs up and down Bolger Hill Road to the store in the circle. Whole different topic. That's why the road's rutted right now. Okay, that's why it's rutted, and it's going to continue to be rutted, and that's where all the water gets diverted. To answer your question about the stream, that's a really wet area right now. And
But that water is not coming down your driveway,
No.
right? That water's going down.
it's going down the stream.
So
But if
what,
you-
what's the water I don't understand the water.
As it
that's gonna-
rains,
that you think-
as it rains and
That
the
you
water,
think it's gonna be added, because this whole development is flowing away from you. I'm not really sure what water you think is gonna be added in
it's
this
not about
situation.
the water that's gonna be added, but the water that's currently on Bolger Hill that comes off the hill itself and it drains both sides as crown roads or however they grade the road.
Uh-huh.
It does get put in both sides of the road. It comes down to our property. I was just stating the fact that all of the water from the top part of Bolger Hill ends up going through a culvert or across our property. Now, may not be the stream or the new driveway, but currently, if they're gonna take and develop that extended class 4 road part of Bolger Hill, and they're gonna sculpt it and shape it and culvert it so it has water control, it needs to be done properly. That's all I was saying.
Okay. Right.
Necessary.
Yeah. Secondly is I have concerns about construction vehicles coming up Bolger Hill. I'm not talking about just for the development, I'm just talking about how they're gonna get a tracked excavator and a low boy up Bolger Hill to navigate that little track to go out to the new properties. Don't forget, when they put in the foundation, the concrete truck's gotta come in, unless you're gonna fly it in. Right? And then there's a well truck. So I talked to Spafford, Wells and Pumps. And if you look at your zoning, your regulations under private driveway, which I'm considering this is being called a private driveway, correct? Over 100 feet, it has to at least have the capacity to do a 2-axle 40,000-pound vehicle. Pretty heavy duty vehicle, right? Just navigating that 90-degree turn right there, if you haven't been up there, I'm not sure how they're gonna navigate that. With the height of the truck, because somebody mentioned it, the town plow truck,
They
whatever,
have to construct the road first, right?
right?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's gonna be clearing or taking
Yeah,
some
yeah.
canopy down, right?
Yeah.
So this brings me to the next point about fire protection. If you're aware that, 3 weeks ago, Jim, 30 Bolger Hill had a chimney fire. And fire department responded. I think there was 4 trucks and they couldn't even get up the driveway. So I know it's a private driveway, but it's probably 300 feet long. Couldn't even get to the house. So my concern is safety. And I'm not saying anything other than that. If there's a fire truck expected, I'm not sure. I tried to contact the fire department. They didn't respond. I sent emails, nothing happened. I tried to contact the chief. I wanted to see what the report said about navigating Bolger Hill and how it wasn't passable to get to the physical house with their equipment. So safety is another concern. And then finally, your website, or no website, but the town states, I'm looking at the DRB hearing schedule, right? They're posted. We mentioned the warnings, right? We all live on Bolger Hill. We had PO boxes, but if it's the requirement of the developer to get the mailing address, if they're going up Bolger Hill, there's now mailboxes at everybody's house. And the mailbox numbers are on there. So I think we do ourselves a disservice if we're supposed to submit materials and have warnings for people to get notified. Your website says for the last 3 meetings, there's a list of a butters list is highlighted. You click on it, it has all the addresses. And then last month, the Leroy Road development butters list, there it is. Ours doesn't have a butters list. I don't know where it went. So just housekeeping. All right. Thank you for your time.
I bet you guys are looking forward to hear from me.
We got 1 minute.
Who are you?
We got 1 minute, Jim.
Well, since I'm talking to the board, I hear a noise over here, but. I won't-
That's all you only hear from me is the noise.
Number one, we own two parcels that connect to Bolger Hill Road. We have the only fire protection on Bolger Hill Road property, which is like a 700,000 gallon dry hydrant pond that we maintain both access to and so it protects the village, and I think it will run about 1,000 feet up the road. So it gets to what I call the Pearson's house, maybe close to my house. I think, to be fair, that fire safety, and as I understand that there is input from the fire safety people, that this does not comply to IBC. That you've got to have a 22-foot wide road to serve those three houses. And I think that one of the provisions that should be in there is to have a fire pond, because that's a mile long up to get up there. So if we talk about 17 houses, those three houses will generate as much traffic mileage wise on Bolger Hill Road as all of the existing traffic. Because those of us who are very close to the end, these people will be all the way at the end. And those of us who have been around for almost 50 years, we remember the Sullivan House up in Simon's Road, where it took 2 days to get the fire truck out from behind the house. And that was a conflagration. So I think whenever we look at this, we need to make sure that we're doing it correctly. And I think the Positano's, the DiPietros, and all the people on the road, none of us are anti-development. But when the last development of this size went in, and you can see it, it's at 30 Bolger Hill Road and at 12 Old Orchard. 75% of the pre-development water stays on that development. It was hammered in the upper part of the property, 20 feet deep, and truckloads of crushed rock were put into it and diversion ditches. And then there was a 250-foot, maybe 300-foot ditch hammered. So all of the upland water goes straight into the hammered ground and it all disappears. Whatever the development water was goes into a large development. Storms are getting worse. If we're going to do all of this right, and I think everyone wants to, then we should all come together, including the rain. So there's a defect in the warning of this. So, and I'm totally confused as to how it could be a major subdivision a year and a half ago, and now it's a minor subdivision and there's no sketch. But so there's a precedent that when the development was done at 30 Bolger Hill Road and 12 Old Orchard, a joint venture was established between the town and the developer and the adjacent property owners. Additional culverts were put in, the ditches were repaired, the road was widened, and a major stormwater fixture was put in place that gathered all the water and then had a very limited output. So all of the water flows shrunk the whole length of the property. Now, our property from 12 Old Orchard actually goes, you asked where the water comes from. That 12 Old Orchard extends all the way up by DiPietros. So the water actually starts up on the range, and in good weather, there's pretty good absorption there. But during a peak time, the water head has a long ways to travel. So where the path is constantly getting eroded. But when we get to the top of Bolger Hill Road, can we bring it back up here?
Oh. Right here.
This area here.
That's not Bolger Hill Road, Jim. That's the driveway. Bolger Hill Road ends right here.
This is Bolger Hill Road.
Right up here.
That is the public right of way.
No. Jim, can you see where my cursor is?
No.
Jim, look to your left.
Oh, it's over here. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yep.
Okay, when I was looking at it before.
Yep.
Okay, so this is Bolger Hill Road. What happened in here is whomever was involved with this property before, they came in and altered the peaking storm. They diverted peaking stormwater from here in front of the DiPietro property. Mr. DiPietro called me, his father, and I went up with a backhoe and I fixed it twice. But the last time it was done, it was a major fill. People brought fill into this area. And there was identified endangered species over here. So we never fixed it. But bringing the water, creating the diversion of this upland water down into this flawed system on this side of Bolger Hill Road is a significant problem. But if the range, the developer, DiPietro's, Posidantes, if we came together as a public-private partnership and said, we want to make this work and we want to make it work better, you could add a dry hydrant, you could add a nice facility up there to capture the water and then also give fire protection to the people. And if you adjust a boundary adjustment, as the Conservation Commission talked about, you could alter the road to get away from the vernal pools. But that's a precursor to coming to you people. The select board, from everything I read, needs to be brought into the puzzle because it's the town right away. It's not the DRB. And so that step was missed. The notice to the landowners was missed. And there's been a really good dialogue. They're all great people. Some of them would like to see some of the trees saved. And I think if we just got off the map and put all the people together, went up and did a site visit, got the range over there, that we could probably materially improve the peaking stormwater here, provide fire safety, and to improve the wildlife and wetlands. But just trying to shove this through and then have those vehicles. But my principal reason for being here tonight is almost 15 years ago, Greg Wilson designed a T intersection for the bottom of the road because of the extreme traffic hazard on Bolger Hill Road to all the kids going in and out of the library, getting on and off the buses because the buses cannot traverse Bolger Hill Road. There's no reason for that not to be there. So we should put some conditions in any development that's done that says these improvements need to be made. And the second thing is, Bolger Hill Road is a recreational lane. It's extensively traveled by people from all over town. The maximum speed of a vehicle should be 20 miles an hour. And the pedestrian should have right of way over the vehicle. And a commercial truck, particularly a 105,000-pound triax, shouldn't be over 15 miles an hour. Because the road doesn't conform, it's not safe. And if you put that 105,000-pound triax too close to the edge, it's going into the ditch. So I think that if everybody just went to a meeting, spent a couple hours together, that the property owners and all of the people who use the road probably end up with a really significant improvement and quality for the whole development. Because otherwise, I can see this ending up in environmental with cost everybody a whole bunch of money. And it would be a lot easier to just plan it out correctly from the beginning.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, so.
Let's see if, let's see if anybody in the do any participants online have a comment? If you do, please raise your hand. Okay, it doesn't look like it. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so if we could ask the engineers to come back up, we'll ask you a few questions here. First question is to our friends at the National Guard. What's the setback from the National Guard boundary to the road?
Well, the question was whether or not they're gonna encroach on the federal land.
No, so there's a pretty prominent stone wall Joe's showing on his plat there. Any grading and the driveway won't cross over the property line.
Okay, thank you. Then let's talk about the culvert design for the streams.
Yep.
The 48-inch and how that would ride.
Yeah, so
alternatives are.
yep, so Fitzgerald Environmental does a lot of culvert design. Basically, the method they use is there's a table where you look at the drainage area size, slopes, those sorts of things, and basically, you know, navigate to the culvert side. So what was discussed at the Conservation Committee, not to nearly that extent, but was that 230 inches would be adequate. I don't think any statements were made. It was equal to a 48-inch. But they were adequate and acceptable.
And that's what Fitzgerald recommended.
They recommended a 48, but the 48, because of the height, was either gonna lift our road too high, or we were gonna have to dig out too much, where it was creating a bigger footprint of impact. It's by the wetland crossing, so it's this one, or.
Again, we're into the wetlands.
So it's this one right here.
Okay.
All right, so the bigger the culvert, either the road's gotta come up, or you gotta chase the side slopes further, or you gotta dig down further and create more impact. Either way you do it, it was creating more impact. So instead of a 48-inch, they were acceptable to 230 inches to have a smaller profile.
Does Tina Heath have any interest in that for like reptiles and that
So-
passing through?
So the wetlands program does look at wetland ecology on either side, so she
Yeah.
will certainly weigh in.
Yeah.
But as this was a map stream, what we tend to do is, required to do is check in with the rivers program, Chris Brunel. So he was consulted by Fitzgerald back in 2023, and he's not taking jurisdiction. So this is not a jurisdictional stream to the rivers program, drainage areas are job. So we won't need a stream alteration permit. So Tina Heath will be as part of our wetlands.
She'll have an opinion
Will
about.
be the authority, but as far as sizing goes,
Right.
Fitzgerald made the recommendation.
Yep.
What's your comment on the 236-inch? I mean, I know you probably haven't done an evaluation or.
Yeah, I don't think that would be fine. I mean, we can certainly vary some of it if the impacts become too much. So 36 would be
That was,
fine.
I mean, we had some comments from, I believe from Tom, Barabo and the.
Oh, they're fine.
JCC.
comments. The only point I was making is that Tina Heath has a say in it too.
Right,
So,
yeah.
and I don't know where, yeah.
No, as proposed, it's 30s, and Tom was saying a 236s would be better or ideal, so.
36 would be okay.
Yep.
So at least it's worth being looked into.
Yep.
Can we talk a little bit about the problem of how this project is gonna increase water flow down Bolger Hill Road?
Yeah, and I think you touched on it, Jeff, in your comments. The only piece that's going down Bolger Hill Road, and it is a class 4 highway, right? So there is a roadbed there. But this is the only portion. This high points, and we have a ditch line heading, it's all downhill from here. So at the corner, it's all downhill going this direction. And all of this water, is all east of that drainage area. Probably is a stream further down. But the only part of it that drains the Bolger Hill Road is this 300-foot, 12-foot wide driveway where there's already existing impervious there. So we're proposing to re-ditch the uphill side.
The uphill side is the south side or
West side.
west side? We gotta go to west side.
Southwest. So there's existing, impervious there now. We will be widening it slightly, but we'll be re-ditching the uphill side. But it's very little impervious when you look at the development as a whole. I mean, it's, probably a couple thousand square feet, maybe.
Ditching, how do you make sure that the ditching doesn't make it the rub on a horse?
So we do have a grading plan for that driveway. I don't know if it's
It's attached.
yeah, see.
Is it, would you know what sheet or detail?
I want to say 5. I think it's the last one. There you go. So that's the ditching that would be occurring on the west side. But it high points right here. So the high points right here, there's an existing, it is a class 4 road, so it's not in that shape, obviously. But we're only building a 12-foot wide driveway for roughly 300 feet, so we're just expanding the footprint. But we're cutting in a ditch here, where there is one now, but we'll be cleaning it up and making it more presentable. We are installing a culvert underneath what was a turnaround. What Mr. DiPietro said about trash collection and people hanging out, we have no problem relocating this further down.
And where, how many culverts do you have across that? Will you have across that, class 4 part of the road?
Just the one.
Just for the turnaround, yeah.
Then we have 2 here. 1 there. And 1 down there.
And if you were to put a culvert there across the class 4 part, how would that change the water flow? What would that do to the water flow?
What do you mean?
You know, I think people are concerned about water coming down, hitting that ditch and then going down Bolger Hill Road.
Yeah, I think that's what it does now. So I would be reluctant to culvert it under our driveway. But
Where do you want me to go?
Raise, just show this side. So it comes off, Bolger Hill, obviously, the vast majority of the water comes off Bolger Hill. Hits that old class 4 ditch line and routes the water that direction. That's where it goes now.
So now it'll come down to that culvert and then it'll go across.
It'll do, yeah, we're, the only reason the culvert's there is because we have this smaller residential size pull off.
Okay.
That's the only purpose of the culvert. If this pull off goes away, we don't have any culverts there.
You can move that further from DiPietro's, right?
Yeah, I thought it was a good idea to have it here because if somebody is lost or driving down Bolger Hill, eventually they're gonna reach the end of it.
Right.
It'd be nice to have a place to turn around that wasn't his driveway.
Right.
But I understand the concern. So if it is
People leaving there
helpful, we can
for the
certainly
trash guy to pick up. Yeah,
Yeah.
I get it. Makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think we want to slide it down, we can't slide it into the wetland buffer, but anywhere along
Right.
that area that might be better screened is would be acceptable for us.
Good.
We had a question about whether, the question for you, Chris, about zoning, whether those could be zoned for single duplexes or ADUs.
State law basically allows any single family to add or have an ADU, so those are permissible. It's going to be more based on septic capacity. So if they're designing a 4-bedroom septic and they build a 4-bedroom house, they're going to have to, can they build another septic to do another ADU? Those are all design issues. There wouldn't be any provisions that would disallow the proposed lots to have ADUs.
Which I think is part of the whole Vermont affordability movement. To try to get more ADUs built, right? So
yeah,
there isn't any place in town that can't.
ADUs don't count as units as far as off a driveway, right? We said we have 3 driveways. Once you get to your 4th, you're doing public road standards. So ADUs don't contribute to a unit count off a driveway. But another comment was made about duplexes, which the Homes Act mandates towns allow duplexes and single families, wherever single families are allowed, you have to have a duplex. And they have to have the same zoning criteria, but a duplex out here would require a road upgrade and does count as another unit.
Okay.
So you won't be seeing duplexes out here.
So what are these wastewater systems capable of right now?
I believe
3,
they
4?
were designing them for a 4-bedroom.
4.
Yeah.
Yeah, 490.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think so.
And when will you go to what's your plan for getting select board approval for the?
Yeah, so that's something that we haven't discussed with Chris yet. I'm not certain where the jurisdiction, we've been to the select board in the past when we're looking to modify roadway standards. In this case, we're not asking for any modifications.
So what the previous application that went through a similar process to this received DRB approval, and then they went to the select board for review.
Right, this is the one on Orr Road.
On Orr Road, yeah.
Put a private driveway on
the town right away. Yep.
So
And
DRB approval did go to select.
yes, that was the basis of it. Yep.
Yeah.
And the select board operated within the request as well as the public works specs that they're allowed.
Okay,
So
thank you.
there's no requirement that one happens before the other. And we're still following the process that we used once before. So
Okay. So I'm gonna drag you back through the vernal pool discussion.
Sure.
Because I'm a little, so there was a discussion about an impact statement versus what hiring Fitzgerald Environmental to do it.
Yeah, so my understanding is in the new NRO, regulations that are in the development rules allow for, I mean, it's called an impact statement or an impact plan or impact study, maybe is the term that's used. What was done in this instance, which is standard, is it's a on-site wetland delineation. And then the state comes out and verifies the delineation. So it's not just Fitzgerald's opinion, it's also state confirmed. So as part of that review, they determined that the only vernal pool in the proximity of our project is the one right off the end of the class 4 right of way. And the regulations say if there's discrepancies between the NRO map and the impact study, that the impact study carries. Being it's a boots on the ground survey done within the last 5 years. So I don't know when the NRO map was done, but if it's anything like the wetlands map that's available, on the A&R Atlas, it's very clear that that's supposed to be approximate and to give you an idea that there may be vernal pools in the area. So they're looked for.
So they
There's
went on,
nothing
they
better
actually
than
went
that.
on to the National Guard range there. Evaluate it.
Yeah, but don't tell anybody.
I think Angela's still on.
He's on the screen.
Just barely.
But the road goes through the buffer as it is currently.
And that's where I was stating that it currently goes through there. It's our only means of access. So we're limiting our footprint within the existing footprint to the best of our ability while meeting current hours.
The only buffers are the town's 100 and the state is technically 50 with a vernal pool still, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
They ask for 100, but they're
Army Corps does that, I think, too, right?
Yeah, but
You're showing the purple line for the vernal pool is which?
That's the 100 buffer.
Well, so the purple is where the 100 exceeds a 50. Because you got the red areas are the class 2s. So those have a 50-foot
That's state,
buffer,
yeah.
which is green. But where the 100-foot buffer exceeds a 50-foot buffer, that's what's shown in purple. So the buffer so this green area here, right, is 50 feet from there.
Yeah.
Which this 50-foot buffer would normally go this direction, right? But there's a 100-foot buffer from here. So the more restricted buffer is shown, but the vernal pool ones are this, the purple and the class 2.
So can I ask what changes would you make to the existing roadway where it goes through there?
So we'd be adding a gravel base, and if you can go back to the other grading plan, we are showing a ditch line on the uphill side. But we're choosing to do 12-foot with pull-offs. Another option could be 15 feet, no pull-offs. Probably easier, than doing pull-offs every 100 feet, but the wetlands program mandates we make the most minimum impact we can down to the square footage of a 15-foot driveway to a 12-foot driveway.
Thank you.
Well,
So those are the questions that I had.
Just a comment on the impact study. The impact study usually comes into play when it's recommended by the Jericho Conservation Commission. So that's within the regs.
So we could request.
Well, it basically says that ZA and the DRB should consult with the Conservation Commission. They shall determine if an impact study is required. The applicant shall provide sufficient information, designation of building envelopes for the Conservation Commission to make its recommendation. So they've been in front of the Conservation Commission. We have not received a formal recommendation for an impact study at this point.
Thank you.
So
There's a question about warning, public warning.
So the way the warning, so basically it was warned as a 4 lot.
No, I'm just saying to the warning to, notification to butters.
Yeah.
Notification to butters.
Notification to the butters where the application, the addresses were provided by the applicant, they went out.
I understand that. I'm just saying, does that affect us?
We followed the rules. I mean, you know, we don't have control over the US mail, whether it gets delivered
Or
or
who
not.
picks the addresses? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Did show up. Well, I'd also say like.
I'm just asking, I don't want, yeah, we
If
don't
someone's
want,
preference for mail has changed, if it hasn't been
Right.
registered with the town,
right,
or the town is, you know, maybe hasn't updated it yet.
right. I get it. I just want to make that
We can
clear.
only use the information that's.
We want everybody that wants to be here to be here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anything else, Chris?
I guess there's two things, two things the boards can entertain. The board can either close the public hearing and move to deliberation, or the board can ask to continue. We can deliberate if there's additional information or questions you have that you want to be answered that you haven't fully got an answer to, that we can provide to the applicant, and then basically the hearing would continue, time specific date, which we have April 8th, and I don't know the next date in April.
And
know you're-
I can't
yeah.
do April.
But it's really it's the board's discretion if they feel they have enough information with regards to closing the public hearing, then we would deliberate and render a decision within 45 days. So.
What do you think?
Or if you have questions, keep asking.
I guess I'm a little hung up on the buffer area. And I guess my question to you is the current road considered non-conforming because it goes through that?
Well, when you say current road, so I'm not.
Well,
so-
the class 4.
The access to he's talking about the access through the 100-foot vernal pool.
So you're talking this area here, Phil?
Yes.
So pre-existing non-conforming is what she's talking
Yeah.
about.
Is it considered that?
I guess it could be because it doesn't meet the necessary standards within the regulations, but it's pre-existing.
Right.
So basically, the idea is that you're going to, if you're going to use it or impact it, you want to try to bring it into conformance, or you want to bring it into conformance. So, and they're proposing to bring it into conformance with a driveway standard. So I'm not sure what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm trying to figure out is it's an existing non-conformance. Are they making it more non-conforming by adding gravel? And I don't know enough to.
Yeah. In my opinion, if it was considered nonconformity, and if what you're saying is are we making it more nonconformity and then therefore not allowed?
Right.
What I would then say is that the most current version of the Jericho land development regulations have overregulated this lot to the point where it cannot be accessible for a single family home.
Yeah.
Therefore, it would be a land taking, which generally there's compensation. So in my view, that's not, I don't think the town can deny access to this parcel. Given it's
Because it is an existing
an
parcel.
existing non-developed parcel. Now, if this was a subdivision in the rear of another lot, and this was still our only access point.
Yeah.
For somebody's preference of an access point, then I think that's a different situation. And like I said, the fact that it's 3 lots instead of 1 lot has no bearing
Right.
on the driveway.
Right, yeah, no, that's.
You know what the percentage of the potential impact to the 100-foot buffer is to the vernal pool?
I get, because 25% is.
Well, you know, the regulations say it shall be limited to 25%, so I don't know what.
I think it says 25% from the 100 to a 600 buffer.
Buffer, and yeah.
But within the 100, it's a shall not impact.
Right.
But as I said,
Okay.
I think that will not. be-
Okay, I thought, yeah, you're correct. I didn't fully read it.
Now, there are some 600 foot, there is a 600 foot buffer,
right,
but
but it's less
it's
than,
just the driveway.
right, it's less than
Way less than
25%, right. But this is within the 100. I'm sorry, but that's what I'm struggling with.
And the state rules have a 50-foot buffer is for vernal pools, and there's.
The wetland rules only require 50 feet, but they commonly get 100 feet often.
Okay, all right.
But the requirement is 50
Right.
feet.
Yeah. Well, his comments with regards to not being able to restrict access to the property is correct. The town doesn't, we don't have that ability to say you can't access your property.
Thank you.
Does anybody else on the board have a problem with closing the hearing?
What did the fire department say about access to that? Those
Yeah, so we've been through this a few times in Jericho. There's fire department recommendations, and then there's what the development regulations state. And my understanding is the town has been requesting the fire department to participate, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong with any of this, but requesting participation in planning commission meetings in order to get the regulations to a point where, they are satisfied. But my understanding is that hasn't happened yet. So the rule, that the DRB operates under is the land development regulations and not recommendations from the fire department that are way above and beyond what the requirements are.
That's correct. The standards that we follow would be the public works spec and the regulation.
Mhm.
And they don't match or line up with the fire department's codes that they like to see.
Underhill follows them strictly, yeah.
Well, but they're probably their public works.
No, it's in their rules, it's in their rules, it's
Yeah.
not in ours, yeah.
Right. And there have been discussions,
Yeah.
between the planning and zoning office and the Underhill Fire Department on that topic with regards to their desires and what we have. So it's in process, kind of, I guess.
Can I make a question to ask here, please? Am I allowed?
Sure.
So the people that are gonna potentially buy these properties and these houses here, are they gonna be told that the fire department may or may not be able to support putting out fire if it happens to their house? Because if I'm here to tell you, everybody that owns a property, why would you want not to hear that? Why would you want that the fire department not to say, this is a place that we can get our vehicles to? That's a question.
It's more important you actually get them back out so that you don't have fire. So
My house is on fire, I wanted to get there. Honestly.
But the next guy needs them to be able to.
Is there anything the town that notifies a purchaser that there's a limit on fire?
Insurance company plays a part.
Well, the comments, are provided in the zoning file in the record, so, I guess.
I think
look
the
at it
answer
that
is
way.
that there's nothing.
There's nothing specific. I mean, it's one instance, we had an Orr Road. The fire department said that they wouldn't be able to provide any fire protection on Orr Road unless we upgraded the whole road. So.
Yeah, I don't see it any similar, like a house that was built 30 years ago. Any house that's constructed, the vast majority of them in Jericho likely don't meet their recommended standards. But anytime you buy an existing house, you don't ask for an ATS letter from the fire department.
All right, so I think I'm gonna close. Or
I
close.
wanted to add to that though. The existing houses are one thing, but why build more houses that aren't accessible to the fire department?
That'd be weird, I guess. Okay, we're close this, and we have one more item to approve the minutes.
Need a second?
But a second.
Steve.
Steve,
So who was?
Steve seconded
I propose to close the hearing
Steve.
and not continue it.
it.
You have public comment on that? I don't think you met the announcement criteria in order to be able to close this hearing. This hearing it was not properly warned.
That's not correct, Jim, so.
You
Closed it?
Jim, that's not correct.
That's what I
All
just.
in favor of closing the hearing?
I,
All right.
Like,
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Did a very good job, son. I can tell you, getting a lot of experience in that.
he's got a thick shell. He's got.
It's something that's. About people's leaves and so.
the things we've got the minutes things that we also have to be organized. No, we just have to decide.
When I do some stuff.
Well, maybe one of these days.
Yeah, you know that I'm. Tim, the name is. No, I didn't. I was down there.
So that's, you're quite familiar with the property.
Oh, yeah, no, so I'm actually, so I used to do carpentry with Tim.
We did the minutes.
And so we would go like.
I move that we approve the minutes of whenever it was.
You got a little.
Motion to approve
Give me a
minutes.
second, Joe.
Oh, I got something, I got. He's trying, wood with him there and you go out.
1-to-1 tie.
Yeah, and the Leafs are beating the Rangers, not that anyone cares, but no, Bruins 2, Sabres 1.
Okay, we're still recording.
9:09 in the second.
Come on.
Playoff season. So I had a motion from Phil for the minutes or a comment or?
Yeah, to approve the minutes of January 14th.
Get a second?
I'll second it.
Thank
That's what
you.
you're looking at.
I've been doing that all night.
All in favor of approving the minutes?
So, yeah,
Like,
so anyway, well, good meeting.
The only other,
I'm rooting for Buffalo, so you don't want me to see them.
is either,
the ups and downs of it. Yes.
is if you want to elect officers in the public, or we do it deliberatively, or it doesn't really matter. So,
Yeah.
so,
For what?
okay. So we're gonna stop the recording.